Hi, it's Whitney Wiley, and thank you for joining me for Habit Talks. This is the place where I get to talk with authors, experts, and thought leaders about the habits that they incorporate into their lives to help them to be more successful, whether it is with business, relationships, or career, all things habits. And today I have with me the incomparable two-time author of a One Habit book, Cynthia Peel. Hi, how are you, Cynthia?
Hi, Whitney. I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me. So I know you're an author twice, but today we're going to be talking about your contribution to the One Habit for Women Action Takers. And
Yes,
you
this
are
is
going to
fun.
be talking about your habit of looking for inspiration all around. Why don't you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what that means for you?
Well, uh, that's such an important part of my life because looking for inspiration really is kind of a daily habit for me. It's what it's how I begin my day. A lot of people start their day, and I do as well. I start my day with prayers of gratitude and uh, it's how I begin because I truly believe that you are in control of your mood and you're in control of your thoughts. And
Yes.
I believe thoughts are things. That goes back to many years of personal development and lots of things that I've read. And so I choose to be in a state of gratitude. I try to be in a state of constant inspiration. And the only way you can do that is to purposefully and thoughtfully look for inspiration. In what I do, I promise the people that I work with to try to be inspiring to them. And so I try to deliver something new and inspiring all the time to my students. Um, and so to do that, I have to come up with new and creative things all the time. And so to do that, I have to constantly be inspired to, so I, to pull rabbits out of the hat all the time. So I have to constantly be inspired. So when I wake up in the morning, I not only want to be, grateful and inspired for myself, but I have to try to have that extra something for not only my clients, but, for my family and for the people that I love and that I'm surrounded with.
I love that. So not only to look for inspiration, but to be inspiration. And before we talk a little bit about your being inspiration,
Mhm.
tell tell us a little bit about the kinds of things or the places that you look for inspiration on a daily basis.
It is everywhere. Like I say in my habit, when I write it out in the book, you can't help but be inspired when you're looking for it. It's kind of the law of attraction incarnate. When you're looking for something and you're physically just aware, your eyes, your ears, your skin, everything is when you're constantly in tune with that's something that you truly desire, that's what you
Mm,
want, you find it everywhere. And so I purposely go looking for it, but I am almost bumping into it by accident often because I've programmed it into my mind that that's what I want. I want to be inspired, so I find it everywhere. But if I ever wake up and I'm, because everybody has bad moods, I'm not going to say that I'm constantly walking around in this enlightened moment. So, when I'm having a bad mood, or it happened to me last night. I was having a wonderful Sabbath Sunday. I was having a wonderful day. But something happened in a conversation last night, and I had a moment where I, I just didn't feel so great. And so I thought to myself, I need to be outside because I often find inspiration from being outside. And it was gorgeous here. I live in Ucaipa, California, and it was beautiful outside last night. There was a cool breeze. I was able to step outside, and the stars, it was perfectly clear sky. The stars were brilliant. Jupiter and Saturn, you could see them because they're real bright. I've been looking for Neowise, that comet that's out right now. I've been looking for that. So the last 2 weeks, I keep going out and I'm looking for the Big Dipper and I'm looking for those things. And so I've been looking out in the stars. And the moon was fairly bright, it's crescent. And I was looking out and I saw there was just enough light into the trees there was some light flickering on the, but there was just enough light in the branches, and I could hear the breeze coming rustling through the leaves. It was just gorgeous. And you can't help but be inspired when you're walking like that. So I was totally cleansed of that bad conversation that I had had moments before. So the bad mood went away, and I was inspired. I caught myself thinking of some beautiful things that I could do, and I was able to turn around. I went back and got my husband and asked him to go on a walk with me too, and we had a beautiful conversation. And so inspiration truly is easy to find if you're looking for it, and it really can help heal. It can help you come up with wonderful creative ideas. It can do all kinds of wonderful things for you if you let it.
Absolutely.
Around you.
And
I
I
just
think
went
it's
on it.
important that you have let people know that anything can be inspiration, right? You saw the stars and the moon, the clearness of the night, and it inspired you to go a step further, to have a walk with and talk with your husband. You know, I do the same sort of thing. I hadn't really thought of it as inspiration, but as you were talking, it's like that totally is inspiration, and how I kind of move through my day. But I start the morning. It's perfect this time of year to go out on the front porch. The front porch faces the east, so I get to see the sunrise. If I stay there long enough, sometimes I'm already out on my walk or run and I don't see it, but I have, like, we're at the end of a street and it's so perfectly clear path to where the sun comes up every morning. And so I was sitting there, but it was still dark and Venus was out. And I was just like, I'm really grateful for that. We're just
Yeah.
grateful for the opportunity to do that. And now I can see it in a new light, not only for gratitude, but for inspiration. And so I appreciate you helping me see that inspiration can be seen in all kinds of things, and it's not just that someone comes along and inspires me, says something or does something that's inspiring, but that the very things that I'm grateful for are inspiration in their own right. So thank you for
Right.
that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I often, if I was teaching a science lesson or something like that, it's one of the reasons why I love nature, because there's a million and one science lessons inside nature. You look at, just the very, way that, you know, trees are put together. They're intricate. When I look at a tree, I don't just look at the beauty. I look at how the root systems are
Mhm.
interconnected and how they support each other, and how one tree reaches out to hold hands with the next one, and how they share nutrients, and how they how the leaves come up, and how they take photosynthesis and they take the nutrients that they need. And then I think about the seeds and how they reach out, and I just think about all these different things when I look at something. Or if you look at animals, and you think of how they're interrelated into the ecosystem, and how they depend upon each other. You look at rocks, and you can be inspired about everything. I do the same thing when I go into a grocery store. I go into a hardware store. I can be inspired by all of these different things. And when I go, my husband laughs at me sometimes because my brain doesn't shut off. I can walk into a hardware store, and it's maybe from my economics background or my finance background, but I look into a hardware store, and I be inspired by the different things on the shelf, but I'm also looking at the marketing, and I'm looking at what they've got on the end caps, and I'm looking at what how they've got the lighting and the personnel, and I'm looking at, I'm just constantly I'm letting inputs come in, and I'm thinking, well, maybe how could they better distribute this, or
Mhm.
how are they using their overhead here? How are they doing this? I'm just constantly being inspired by how are they doing things. It's one of the things that I do with businesses. I have friends that call, or clients that call and ask me, how could I better market myself, or how could, maybe I need a new product, or how can I reach this particular type of audience. I know you work with students. How could I maybe reach that audience?
Mhm.
It's just something I have I think it's one of the ways that I've been able to help people is because I can see things from a million different angles because I'm constantly looking at things from different angles because I just love seeing everything. I like to have these inputs come into me because it's exciting. It keeps things from being dull. It's just a
Absolutely.
wonderful way of looking at the world.
I'm going to, you mentioned the hardware store. I usually try to hide in the car when my husband goes into the hardware store. I'm going to approach it with a whole new mindset now and just go in and ask to be inspired when we
Be
are in
inspired in the
Home
hardware
Depot or
store.
Lowe's. I'm not a shopper, not a big shopper, so
Uh-huh.
anytime I have the opportunity to like sit somewhere and do something else rather than shop, I do. But I'm gonna change. I'm changing my mindset about the whole thing, and I'm gonna look for inspiration going forward.
Go into the hardware store. I challenge you to go in and look at like the plumbing section and go and look and say, what could I do with these pipes?
Oh
Oh
my
my gosh,
God!
what could I use these pipes for that, somebody wouldn't normally use a pipe for?
I'm
Because
gonna
I do a lot of prototyping and
I'm gonna
people
make a note of that.
or, or go and look at it. What could you do? There's this little section of magnets, and people don't typically use magnets for what I use magnets for. But because I'll be using electricity and I'll be doing all kinds of creative things with them. But or go to where the doorknobs are, or like the little connectors are. I come up with all kinds of neat to do with these bits and bobs that nobody would normally think about.
Well, you certainly make it
Because
sound fun, and that's for sure.
and who doesn't want to have fun? Who
I do
wants?
want to
I mean,
have
there's
fun,
just.
but I'm, thinking about the doorknobs or something. I'm gonna a whole new mindset, a whole
Have you
new
ever
mindset.
watched Narnia or read the book Narnia? Go into the door section, the Chronicles of Narnia.
I
Think
have
about
not.
what's behind the door, the wardrobe, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You never read that book. Oh my
No.
gosh, you have to read that book. See, maybe that's what did it to me when I was a kid. It was by C.S. Lewis, and that's one of the ways that you can be inspired is by reading these great little books. I don't have a lot of time for reading fiction now. I have too much going on in my head maybe. I read a lot of nonfiction now and personal development books, but when I was a kid I would read stuff like those fantasy books. The
Mm,
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe really influenced me when I was a child. And it was a book about this child walking through this wardrobe, and she'd pull the clothes aside, and when she walked in it was a whole nother world. It was like this winter fantasy land when she walked into this wardrobe. And so that's the imagination kind of sparks.
and I think that's an important point. You've talked about the inspiration, but there's using your imagination, creativity,
Yeah.
looking for it, being open and willing to find it everywhere. And as you
Mhm.
titled your chapter, all around, finding inspiration all around. So I
Right.
think it's really important. Just hadn't thought of it the way you've described it, and
Yeah.
now I'm going to be more cognizant and more conscious about doing that and finding it in places like hardware stores and closets that I
Could be
hadn't
anywhere.
and I hadn't looked before. So let's talk a little bit about your unhabit. And so, if you are new to the One Habit series, there is both a habit and an unhabit.
So that's
And
again.
the unhabit that Cynthia has talked about is the giving up, the habit of giving up. And so let's talk a little bit about that. What do you mean by that? And are you willing to share a story where you didn't give up?
Well, first the unhabit of giving up, and what I say, it's just the worst thing that you could do
Yeah.
because you never know what is around the corner. You never lose unless you give up. You never know you've hit the end. I mean, if you're still breathing, there's still time to make
Yes.
adjustments. There's still time to improve. There's still time to make it work. you've never hit the end of your rope. I mean, if you let go, there's still a place to go. And every one of us has struggles. Every one of us has challenges. And I believe deep down that that we truly grow from challenges and experiences. They're
Yes.
just opportunities for us to get stronger. And I know that's difficult for some to hear when they're facing that challenge, and when they're in the middle of it. It's difficult because everybody was like, "Oh no, you don't understand." You know, all of us have been through something, and sometimes it's not as apparent, or it's not as easy to see, but all of us are facing struggles and challenges. Personally, one in particular that I could share was our family had a really, really difficult moment in time when we faced a very difficult financial struggle. And it seemed like the world was kind of crushing down on top of us. And it was a really humiliating financial struggle for us, because I have a huge background in finance and banking, and I had a lot of pride wrapped up in how well I handled our financial strength and our wealth. And so when something happened to us that was kind of outside of our control, we had some things and people acting in ways that were not nice. I'll just put it that way, in a very simplified way. Some unscrupulous things happened, and it caused us to have to act in very humble ways. We had to leave our home. We didn't lose it, thank goodness, but we rented it out because we couldn't afford to stay here. We wanted to do what was right. So in order to keep paying our bills, we rented it out. We moved in with my mother-in-law, and she was very gracious and wonderful to let us do that. But at the time, I had 4 small children. One was nursing, one was a toddler, and I had 2 that were just starting school. One was just start 3rd grade, and one was just going to start 1st grade. And he wasn't yet reading. He was having he had some disabilities that was making it difficult for him to learn. And it was a really big struggle. And when we moved in with her, it was overwhelmingly, I felt a lot on my shoulders because of the humiliation, and also because of the amount of work that I was going to have to do to be able to figure things out, because I felt it was all my fault, and whatever. It was a big deal. And at that moment, I thought, I can't give up. I can't, I couldn't do, it would be easy for me just to say, oh, this, just take everything. I can't do anymore. And there was times with my husband too, we went through some depression, and it got to the point where both of us had thoughts. We never acted on it, but we got to the point where we had thoughts of, maybe the kids would be better off with someone else. Maybe we couldn't handle this. But absolutely, it came from down deep inside me. I was just like, absolutely no, this isn't going to work. Let's figure this out. Let's make this work. And that's when, you find out where your true character comes from. And we work through the situation. And I actually, that situation actually helped us develop some of the greatest benefits that we've ever had. That's when I started homeschooling my children, because we moved into a neighborhood where I didn't want to send my kids to school. That's where my homeschool journey began. And I never thought I was going to have it within me to start teaching my kids, but it was extremely difficult because, like I said, I had a toddler, and I was nursing, and a child that had learning disabilities, and I had a overachiever 3rd grader. And so it was extremely challenging, and I had to start my home-based business at that point, because I had to make back all the money that I thought we had lost, to make up the fact so that we could get back into our home. And so I took all this on myself, and we worked through it. But I was like, I'm not giving up. I'm not going to do this. And so at this point, we turned around that situation, and I started my home-based business journeys, and I started my homeschooling journeys, and everything turned around for us. It was in those darkest hours, those darkest moments where you feel like you've just about reached your end. And that's when thankfully I found the inspiration to move forward and change everything around. And it worked all out because within a year we were back in our home. I had my kids in home. They were thriving. They were doing wonderful. My child that couldn't read or couldn't do anything was thriving, doing reading third grade level. He was doing awesome. And so everything just turned around because we just got to the rock bottom and thought, nope, we're not giving up and we're going to keep going. And so I don't know if that story is perfectly illustrating my point, but it just means that you just, no matter what your struggles are, whether they're physical health, I've been through health challenges too, where I thought, I was consigned to not, I had a health diagnosis that was supposed to be either terminal or for the rest of my life. And I just told the doctors, I'm like, no, I'm not going to be sick anymore. And I decided I'm going to keep going. And I told them, no, I don't want your medicine. I'm going to get healthy on my own. And I decided I was just going to start running, and I ran a marathon, and I got sick. I mean, I got healthy, and I just kept going. I think you have to kind of dig down deep and find you have to decide that you're just not going to give up. You're going to keep going, and you're going to find your way to get through your challenges, because you never know what's just on the other side. And in the book, I talk about this, a diamond miner. You just keep chipping away, and you don't stop, because if you give up, you don't know what's the beauty right on the other side. And if just one more hit, and you might make it through. And that's been my experience. Every time that I think I'm almost at the end of my rope and things have gone so bad that I just can't take it anymore, if I push through and I find that inspiration to keep pushing just a little bit more, that's when I usually break through and have a phenomenal breakthrough, and everything's just, perfect. Now, it doesn't get so easy, but I have the inspiration to keep pushing and make it through.
Right. First of all, I want to say I think your story was a perfect story. So, there are other people who have faced financial challenges and done very irreversible things out of feeling like, I can't go on, or whether it's pride or arrogance or whatever it is, that they do something that they cannot take back. So kudos to you and your family for sticking through it, to coming through with a plan. But the other part that struck me is, and you used this word twice in both your stories, was that you found the inspiration, which ties back to your habit. And that if you just keep taking one step after the other, right? You don't give up. You just keep going. You're asking for guidance, asking for help, asking for inspiration. It will come to you, and you can turn things around. And there is always this thought that, one of these steps, if you just keep taking steps, one of those steps is going to be the step that gives you the other word that you used a couple of times, which was breakthrough. And you can get there, but you have to keep going. It's not going to come if you give up. So I love both the stories that you shared. And it reminds me in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill tells the story of a gentleman who was mining for gold, very much like you're talking about the diamonds. And
Love that story.
he named that section 3 feet from gold. And the gold miner kept mining, and he lost the vein and sold it. He sold his rights to this because he thought that they couldn't get any more. And the next person comes along, does some research, employs some professionals that help him understand that the gold was right there. The first guy just needed to keep going. And so it is not only with gold miners and diamond miners, but with us, that we just have to, if you're committed to the goal. Now, if you change your mind and that goal is not for you, that's fine. But if you're committed to the goal, whatever obstacles come up, you have to be in the habit of just keep moving forward. And so you cannot give up. So Cynthia, I wanted to ask before we wrap up, if you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share about either your habit or your unhabit.
Well, I love what you just said. Sometimes it takes, and part of that inspiration doesn't just come to us. Sometimes we're having a hard time even finding it if we go looking for it. Sometimes it takes external sources, like in Napoleon Hill, that miner went out and had to hire other people to find what he lacked in himself. And sometimes we do need to find coaches. We need to find people that have that ability to see things that we can't see for ourselves. And so that is something that I encourage people, if they can't find it for themselves, or they're just at a point where they're just feeling discouraged, or they're feeling, like in my community of homeschool moms or business owners that are just feeling like they're overwhelmed, or they're just feeling uninspired, reach out to people that can help them. I have a community of joyful balanced mompreneurs is the community that I started on Facebook. And it's just a community where we just try to help inspire each other, and we try to help mompreneurs that are out there just trying to get their business started, or trying to keep their business going, to be inspired and to keep that balanced life. That work-life balance is really hard sometimes when you've got kids and you've got your business going. And that is something that maybe, if you're just feeling exhausted, especially with all the challenges that we're facing right now, maybe you can reach out to somebody else to give you that extra bit of information or that extra tip that you need. We can work together, we can mastermind together to come up with that knowledge or that extra bit of inspiration that you need. Reach out for help if you need it. We don't have to we're socially distanced right now, but we can be emotionally connected. We can reach out and intellectually help each other. And I just want people to know, and that's one of the wonderful things about having, books, resources, being together, connected through the internet, or, just reach out and reach out to people that you think might be able to help you, and get some inspiration, get some help that you might need if you need it.
Absolutely. That's a very good point, and thanks for reminding us that asking for help is absolutely a path forward. And we don't need to be embarrassed about that or ashamed. Everyone needs someone. No one succeeds on their own. So
No.
very good point to end on. Cynthia, I want to thank you again for joining me for Habit Talks. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And if you don't have your copy of One Habit, Women Action Takers, get your copy. I will have the link in the post. You can get it directly from the One Habit store, or you can buy it on Amazon. There is also an audible version that you can get. And then I'd like to invite you to join me and the contributors of the newest One Habit book that is coming. Cynthia is also a contributor in this book, and it is the One Habit for a Thriving Home Office. And now a lot of us have begun working at home due to the current COVID situation. And so if you are working at home, and whether you're doing it well or struggling a little bit, I'm pretty sure there's some inspiration that you'll find in the book that will help you navigate your work at home journey just a little better. So in the One Habit page, on the One Habit page, we will be streaming a day-long set of interviews with the contributors of that book. So we invite you to join us. It'll be from 9 to 5 this Friday, July 31st. So thank you again, Cynthia, for joining me, and for those of you who stopped in to listen. Thank you for joining us. This is Whitney Wiley and Habit Talks, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.
Bye.